Hi, welcome back to my channel. We're already at the end of September. However, it is still the fall-autumn season. Honestly, I've never really cared for fall that much. I've always been more of a spring person, but this year I'm actually really enjoying the autumn atmosphere. So that's new, even though we don't really get much of that here where I live, which is pretty sad, which is also probably why I've never really cared for fall. Today I'm going to talk about 5 different books that I feel like kind of fit the fall-autumn vibe, if you will. Some I feel just kind of fit the autumn atmosphere. Some are actually like spooky and kind of fit the more Halloween vibe, if that's your thing. The first book is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This book follows Alex Stern, who drops out of college, gets involved with a lot of like bad stuff, and miraculously survives a multiple homicide. After this, she is offered a full ride to go to Yale and is essentially given like a second choice at life, basically. And while attending school at Yale, she is given the task to basically observe and monitor the like secret societies that Yale has. There's a lot of like occult activity, there's magic, it's creepy. It's kind of like, it's not really scary, but it definitely makes you uncomfortable. I mean, it definitely made me uncomfortable at several times during the story. It just overall has the autumn and dark academia atmosphere, if that's your thing. And like I said, I wouldn't call this book scary. I mean, it is a fantasy novel. It's not a horror novel. I wouldn't call this book necessarily scary, but for someone who doesn't like reading scary or is spooked pretty easily, I would say that this is kind of like a good thrill, I guess, because it definitely makes you uncomfortable. It gives you that uneasy feeling of like what is going on, what's going to happen, and also a lot of what goes on in the story and things that you learn about the main character's past and everything are actually quite dark. So where it's not necessarily spooky, it does have some elements in there that definitely make the reader feel uneasy or uncomfortable, and it overall has that autumnal vibe to it. The next 2 books are actually vampire books, and if you don't know, I love vampires, so I had to throw in some vampire recs in here. So the second one is Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. This is phenomenal. I really like this book. I just really enjoy this story. This book is exactly what it sounds like. It is basically just one long interview with a vampire. The interviewee, or the vampire being interviewed, basically is just telling the story of his life from before he became a vampire, when he became a vampire, and his life since then. This book, honestly, in my opinion, is like a staple book to read if you like vampire stuff. And this time of year, the fall, autumn time, definitely probably the most fitting time of the year to read about anything like supernatural, spooky, Halloween season vibes, whatever. The atmosphere that Anne Rice has created in this novel is just so fitting for the season, and it's also a plus because it has vampires, and vampires are the coolest. So, and also the movie is pretty great. It's super campy, and I love it. Watch that as well. I don't know. This isn't a movie channel. I don't know. I don't recommend movies on here. I don't even really watch movies. But you can watch that one, I guess, if you want. If you like this. I don't know. Whatever. So the next book is Dracula by Bram Stoker, the other vampire book. Again, if you like vampires, this is a staple, if not the staple, vampire novel to read. Of course, there were other vampire novels that definitely came before this, such as Carmilla, but this is still a pretty staple vampire novel. I mean, like, you don't have to read this if you like vampires. It's just like, maybe you'll enjoy it if you like vampires. If you don't know what the story within Dracula is about, it's basically about a man who visits Count Dracula to essentially like finalize a business deal, and he is then like imprisoned by Dracula while Dracula sets off to find the man's wife and like do vampire business. This one is definitely the first one on this list to be more on the spooky side. I mean, it is a horror novel, just like all the others. The spooky fall atmosphere is very much present throughout the entirety of the story. It's honestly quite frightening at times. Like, there are scenes in this book that just made me so uncomfortable and just like freaked me out so bad that like I still think about. I don't know. It's just so weird. Like, I'm thinking of one specific scene. I just literally remember reading this scene and just being like, what the fuck just happened? I don't know. It's insane. But if you lean towards more of the spooky side or you like horror, this is definitely a must read, especially if you like vampires. Now, I will admit, I wasn't too scared while reading this book just because, I don't know, I read a lot of horror novels. It's one of my favorite genres, if not my favorite genre, honestly. Where this was scary and it still spooked me out a ton at times, I wasn't like absolutely horrified. I mean, it's definitely scary though. So yeah, this is definitely a must read for the fall spooky season. The next book is The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. This one, out of all of the books that I'm mentioning in this video, has the, for lack of more adjectives, has the most like distinct autumn, fall, spooky atmosphere throughout the entire story. The spooky vibes in this book are phenomenal. Just phenomenal. This story is about a group of people who get invited to go stay in a house that is known to be haunted. And the man that invites them all is basically trying to like scientifically prove the supernatural, like the existence of the supernatural. The writing in here is phenomenal. When writing about the house itself and just to describe each room and the atmosphere of the house and just really building the house, honestly, in this book, it's like the house became its own character, essentially. This is also a horror novel. Personally, for me, I did not find this book scary. For me, somebody that, like I said, I read a lot of horror novels. Horror is my favorite genre. However, I've also spoken to people that found this very scary for them. So definitely depends on how scary you find things. I don't know, but I think this is a must read for the fall season, and it's surely to put anybody in an autumn mood. It's very spooky, let's get ready for Halloween type vibes. And the Netflix adaptation is great. Again, this is not a TV show or movie channel, but I just want to say the Netflix adaptation takes the story and honestly really changed it. It's almost a completely different story. The only thing that's kind of the same is the house, but I will say I really, really enjoyed the Netflix adaptation. I thought it was amazing. Now, the last book is definitely, in my opinion, the scariest out of all of these. This one actually scared me. It is The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. Now, this book is insane. Obviously, if you've seen the movie or you've even read the book. I actually have never seen the movie. I really want to watch the movie just because it's like one of the biggest horror films ever, but I've read the book, so I don't know. But if you have not read the book or seen the movie and don't know what the story is about, the story is about a girl who starts acting rather strange and abnormal, so her mother seeks like medical help. However, the medical help doesn't help, you know, doesn't solve the problem here. So she then contacts a local priest who believes the girl to be possessed. Like I said, this is definitely the, in my opinion, the scariest book on this list, and not only that, is definitely the most disturbing book on this list. I would say that because this book is so scary, in my opinion, it definitely has more like spooky vibes than like fall, but spooky and fall kind of go hand in hand because of Halloween. I like reading scary books near Halloween time, so I had to put this on the list because out of all of the horror novels I've read, this one kind of takes a cake, honestly, for me. It was just so disturbing. Like, it was just so horrifying and disturbing, the things that happen in this book. I could not put this down. I got like halfway through it, and then the last half I read in one sitting. I could not put it down. I was just in shock the entire time. If you don't typically read horror, you don't really like horror, you are very easily made like uncomfortable by horror novels, I would not read this. But if you love horror like me and you want something scary and disturbing, read this. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did, because for however scary and disturbing it was, I loved it. I thought it was awesome, honestly, to say the least. So those were the 5 books that I would recommend to read for the fall, autumn, spooky time of the year. Let me know if you decide to read any of these books and how you feel about them, especially The Exorcist. I really want to talk to somebody else that's read The Exorcist. I need that. I need that. If you have any recommendations for me to read in the fall, let me know. I would love them. I would love all of the recommendations. Thank you for watching. I'll see y'all next time.